Hello and welcome to another video. In today's video we're going to be taking apart one of our Bolens tube frame PTOs and assessing all of the different parts. Now we haven't taken one of these fully apart before, so this could be fun. Sorry about the background noise, we've got our workshop heater on, but since the last video we've done a bit of work on one of our kind of parts PTOs here that we've got to help us with this project. Now if you remember from the last video, it still had the belt guard on and it had this UJ which was seized on this shaft. Now the first thing we did was take the belt guard off, which is really difficult while you have the pulley on. Because with this part behind the pulley, you can't take it off that way, so you have to kind of open it up a bit to get it over this part here. So that was quite difficult, but we got it off in the end. And then we used this kind of fork tool in between the UJ and the pulley and just gave that a few taps, and eventually that came out all right. Now the UJ that was on this PTO appears to be kind of a new one, because you can see the green paint, which is what Bolens painted most of their new models, compared to the older ones which were all kind of black. And this UJ appears to be unmaintainable, which what I mean by that is, if we look at the old model of universal joints, you can't really see because there's quite a bit of oil on them, but there's snap rings on each of the kind of points here, and there's caps on the outside of the rods that go through the middle part. Now if you take off those snap rings and the caps, you can pretty much take the whole thing apart, clean it up, grease it, all of that stuff. That's what I would call maintainable. Whereas these, or this new one, you appear to not be able to take it apart fully, which is an interesting change made by Bolens.
There's no grease nipple on it either, is there?
Yeah, that's another good point, is there is kind of a bit of a hole there, but it's definitely not tapped for a grease nipple or anything, so that's another advantage to these ones. But the main reason for doing that was so that we can get the pulley off of this end of this PTO. Idea being, if we can take that off, we can push the whole shaft through that way, because we want access to this nylon washer, because we're going to have to make up our own one of them. So we're going to have to take dimensions, and we can't really do that if we have to damage it to get it out. So that's why we need that out for reference. Also, taking this one apart slightly will help us when it comes to dissecting the one we're doing for the Bolens 1054, which is this one here. We've cleared the decks a bit here, so that we can take the pulley off of this PTO. So I'll just stand this up like so I can get the snap ring off of this, which has been quite tough since it's quite rusty. Seems to all be in one piece, but I'll let the cameraman have a try.
Yeah. Hey.
There you go, the cameraman's better than me at that, clearly.
Yeah, not necessarily holding the camera at the same time though.
So I'm going to work with it. Now the pulley isn't moving immediately, which isn't necessarily surprising. I'll just use this nylon hammer to try and see if it'll move. I don't think it is, to be honest. So we might have to put a puller on that, or put it in the press, but either way we need to get that off, so we'll come back to you in a minute. We have a 3-jaw puller set up on this now, and I will just put this bar through here to stop it turning as I turn this. I'm going to hopefully just smoothly pull this off. it is moving. I think it's just going to be a slow process as usual with one of these pullers. Yep, there we are, definitely moving now. That does seem to have tightened up a bit randomly now. Not fully sure why.
Maybe we should have cleaned the shaft first.
It's a good point actually, that might be going through that snap ring groove currently. I'm trying to push through it though.
No, we can stop and clean it.
So we cleaned up the splines on the shaft now, and the splines do seem slightly enlarged where the hole goes through the shaft there. But anyway, we've kind of put some oil on it too, and we're going to use something with a bit more torque than my arm now. So we've got the impact driver, and I'm going to be quite gentle with this at first, but this is mainly for the high spots that we've got the impact for. And there we are. I think the pulley is pretty much off now. That took quite a lot from the impact. I will just loosen that off. There we are. You can take the pulley off. Of the puller off. And now, there we are. That is the pulley off the shaft. We've got one more snap ring there. And then I think the shaft can probably go through then. We've had a bit of a clean up now with the pulley off, and seeing as there's a gap there, we're going to try and hit this through, see if that works, only gently though. That doesn't appear to be working, and it does feel like it's going straight up against a brick wall there, even though it looks like it's got space to move. Now I will try the other side, but I've got to take this snap ring off first. Which is going to be difficult again. The cameraman's a lot better at these than I am.
It's difficult when you're looking for a camera lens at what you're trying to do as well.
Yeah. It's fine, because if it breaks, I'll be wearing it, you won't.
They are very, very stiff. Unbelievably stiff.
They are quite thick for circlips too. Not sure if that's just a feature.
I think they're a non-standard size circlip, but I think they're extra thick.
Well, that would be something that we come to later, but I will try hitting this now. Well, that moved incredibly easily. You can actually see the clean shaft on that end, and that's just pulled back through, and as you can see, there is our nylon washer that we want to be replicating, and behind that I can see the bearing too. So now we will just kind of clean some of this up and see if we can get that off. We cleaned everything up on this PTO and took off this washer, which we also cleaned up. Now that's quite a complex thing to make actually. It's kind of got a smaller circle there, obviously the hole going through it, then there's a taper up to the full diameter, then there's a step down to another kind of circle shape there, which all of that's going to be very difficult to machine. I mean, we could technically just use this one on our PTO, however we're going to have to make more of these in future anyway, so we might as well try doing one in this project. Now we put all the snap rings back on this so that we don't lose them, and as much as you can pull the shaft this way until it hits the snap ring, but the other way it hits something that we can't see yet, and I feel like until we take absolutely everything off we won't know what it is that's hitting, but otherwise at the moment it's just going to have to come out that way when we take apart our PTO here, which is what we're now about to do. So we will put this to the side and have a look at taking our one apart. We have the unit that we're going to rebuild on the bench now, and as we discovered with the other model, the shaft will go this way, but it won't go through the other way, even with the pulley off, is what we discovered on that one. Whether it will be the same on this one or not, we can't be fully sure yet. There might be just something that's unique to that one, or it could be that they're all designed to only go one way. But a challenge we have on this one is the fact that we have the broken bearing. It still has the remains of that in here, so we've got the inner race still on the shaft and the outer part is still in the housing. Now we can use the fact that the shaft pulls back here to actually pull the outer part out. That gives us space to pull to put a puller in there, sorry. Whereas if they're both together, you can't get a puller in there to get the part on the shaft, which is the main bit we need to get off at the moment, so that then the shaft can go all the way out. So we can take out the outer bit and then take off the inner race afterwards with the extra space. However, before we do that, we're actually going to take the stuff off of the other end to see if this is only designed to go in one way or not. So we're going to try and get the snap ring off of this end here. There we are. Leave that there. And I'm going to be optimistic and try and pull this off myself. And that's not going to budge, so I need to get a puller on that so that we can get this pulley off of the shaft, and then we can see if it will go both directions. That is out now. Hopefully it is, because we kind of got to the end of the thread of the puller there. Leave that behind, and hopefully that will come off the last bit. With the pulley off now, you can see that the circlip actually goes up against this end here. Which is more than the other one did. There was a gap there on the other PTO the whole time. So this is promising that it might actually go through when I take this circlip off, but we shall see. That is that circlip off now. And if I lay this flat, it goes through one way, and it goes through the other by the looks of it. There we are, that goes through a long way that way, and that is a bit rough on the shaft there, but I'm sure that will come out fully. We've cleaned up the shaft now, and you'll see live on camera if this comes out. There we are. That went all the way through. So that does beg the question of why it didn't on the last one. That might be because the end bearing is actually intact on the other one. But I don't know. And I can see all the way down there to the needle bearing now. Not sure if you'll be able to see that on camera, or if we'll be able to get the light in there. You can kind of see the needle bearing down the end of it. But now we need to start taking all of these bearings off, because we're replacing them all. Firstly, I need to take the outer race of this bearing off. So I've got the internal circlip pliers here, and we will try and get this big circlip off, which is very tight actually, I must say. I'm not sure if these are actually the right size for this. I have to try and get another pair. but these don't get used anywhere near as much as the external ones, seeing as that's what most of our equipment uses. Yeah, that is very tight in there, so I will just try and get another pair off camera, see if I can get that off, and then after that we'll need to position a puller on there to try and pull the outer race of that bearing out. We finally got off the internal circlip, which was very difficult to get off. Actually, it took quite a while, but with that off now, we've got a blind bearing puller on the outer race part of the bearing, and we now need to just pull this off, but it's probably going to be a two-person job holding it and winding it at the same time. So we will come back to you either with a success story with that out, or it'll probably take us ages and it won't go very well. Let's hope for the first one. We've taken off the outer race of that bearing now, and we did get quite carried away with ourselves, so we actually knocked out the needle bearing too, which came out with that lump of slime, which I assume under there is the remains of the oil seal that went in this end of the PTO housing. Now we've just rubbed a rag across this bit of the shaft, and other than noticing that the inner race of this bearing is loose, so we can just pull that off as part of our cleaning, there's another snap ring on there, which kind of answers our dilemma that we were talking about earlier in the video about how we could move this backwards and forwards while it was in there. Now we found that we could move the shaft this way but not that way. Now we didn't push this back far enough for the snap ring there to hit the bearing here, so we didn't encounter the fact that that couldn't actually go all the way out that way, and the shaft couldn't move this way because of that big interior snap ring that was holding the intact bearing of the other PTO in place. Now the only reason why we could take this out on this one was because obviously the bearing's deteriorated and there's nothing to hold the outer part to the inner part, which is why we could pull that out and we couldn't on the other one. So that's engineering dilemma solved with that. But what we're going to do now is have a massive cleanup of all of these parts. Not much cleaning up needs to happen on the shaft now, however in this part is an absolute mess. It's all just slime really, grease and oil and all the rest of it. And then once we've cleaned all that up, the exterior of this is pretty bad too, with a bunch of old oil, and we've got some muck to clean off the other components too. So we're going to do all of that off camera because that's probably going to take quite a while, and we'll come back to you in the next video on this project, ready to see if our new parts are going to work with the stuff that we have here. So that is it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.